In this video, I'm going to show you how to find credible sources for your college research papers, no matter what class you're taking. And I'm going to give you some general advice from someone who spent 8 years in college researching hundreds of topics over the years. The first thing I want to talk about is the difference between credible and non-credible sources. Credibility is trust. Credible sources are sources and information that you trust. Trust can be earned in a lot of ways. When encountering an article or website, I always ask myself these 3 questions. The first question you should always ask yourself is, do you trust the source? Never underestimate your own instincts. Second, do you know who wrote the article? Is someone taking credit for this information? If not, that speaks to its credibility. Third, do I know where the author got the information? Is there a list of references or links to other articles or studies? That's important. You also want to look out for credibility red flags. One of those is a fancy website. Now, there's nothing wrong with a fancy website, but nowadays, literally anyone can pay for a nice website, so it doesn't really mean anything. Second are ads for clickbait articles directly underneath. While it's fine for there to be some ads or suggestions for other articles to read, you want to watch out for when the suggested articles are a bunch of clickbaity titles. Now that we've discussed credibility, let's look at your options for finding trustworthy sources. One option you can always use is the library databases. As a college student, you indirectly pay for these database subscriptions with your tuition, so you might as well check them out. To use the databases, you want to first go to the college website, then find the tab to the library, click on the library, and then you're going to scroll down and go to search for articles. And this should bring you to the list of databases available. So once you make it to the list of databases, you might find yourself overwhelmed because there are literally hundreds of different databases out there. So I like to go to the popular databases, and some of the ones that I like to use are CQ Researcher, EBSCO, and then ProQuest are kind of my big 3. And any of those will be good places to start. So some general tips for using the databases are, first, always click on the box that says full text articles. And this is going to make sure that you're only getting full text articles and not book reviews or links to articles that you have to pay for. You also want to click on the box for peer-reviewed research if that's something your teacher requires. Some teachers do. I don't require it for this class, but just be aware that that is an option. My last piece of advice is to keep your search terms broad and try different words for different results. A lot of us grew up using Google, and the Google algorithm is really good. So it will automatically find similar articles that are using different words, but the algorithm for the databases won't do that. So if you're, for example, looking at student stress, you might also want to look at student anxiety or student depression to get different results. Okay, so let's take a look at what this actually looks like. So this is EBSCO, and as I said before, you're going to scroll down and you're always going to click on full text. And you can also click on scholarly peer-reviewed journals if that's what your teacher wants. And then up here is your search box. So you are going to put in your search terms, try to be as broad as possible. And again, you might have to search a couple different ways of wording what you're looking for, but you'll find what you need. So when looking at a database article, there's 2 things that you want to pay attention to. The first is the title. So unlike a Google article, titles for databases are not clickbait. They're going to tell you exactly what the article is about, and it's going to be pretty detailed. So the title is very important, and it's going to tell you a lot. And the second is the abstract. So the abstract is a summary of the article that the author has written. So always read the abstract before going on to read the rest of the article. So once you've put in your search terms and hit search, it's going to come up with a list of articles. So if you click on an article, it'll bring you to this page. And this is all the information you need about the article. And as I said before, abstract is so important. Always read that. It's going to give you a bunch of information. And then you can also click on cite to get the citation. So that's really handy too. Just always scroll down to MLA because that's what we're using. Okay, so we've talked about databases, so let's look at another option, which is using Google. I love Google. I am not ashamed to say it. Google is a great place to find lots of good information, but you need to know how to use it effectively. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. So one option is using Google Scholar, which if you've never used it before, you can just Google it, which I know sounds weird, but yeah, Google Scholar. Go to Google Scholar, and then basically it's just like a database, but it's finding free articles rather than subscription articles. And the trick with that is you always want to click on where there's a PDF, like I just did here. If there's no PDF, it probably means that you have to pay for it, so be aware. The next option is using traditional Google, and there is nothing wrong with doing this. It might require a little bit more work in terms of finding credible sources, but you can definitely find really great credible research on traditional Google. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Rule 1 is don't use the first article or site on the list of research results. The first articles are usually paid sites that fork out thousands of dollars to be the first search result. Actual credible sources don't have to pay Google to put them on the top of the search results. So always scroll down to find the sources that are there on their own merit. Rule 2. Articles and sites must have a named author. I said it before and I will say it again. Credible journalists want to take credit for the things they write. They want their name attached to the article. If this isn't the case, don't trust what they write. Rule 3. Articles or sites must cite their sources via a reference list or direct links. Never trust a source that mentions a study and doesn't either have a list of references at the end or a link to the study that you can quickly check. It is a common tactic to use scientific words like data or research and don't link to anything because most people won't check. Always check. Rule 4. Generally, it's a good idea to recognize the publication and to prove credibility. If the website is trying to sell a product, you should avoid it. If the website title is odd or seems at odds with the topic you are researching, you should avoid it. To show you what I'm talking about, this is an article that I found when I researched college stress. It was one of the first things that popped up, which makes me think that they probably paid to put it there. And it's called 22 Tips for College Students to Stress Less. There is no named author, and it's being published on a business called Sign Up Genius. So this would be something that I would not want to cite because it's not very credible. Now, I expect most of you know how to do a Google search. So always make sure that, again, you're not going to the first result. I did actually click on the first result for this one, and what it came up with was this, which no named author, definitely from a business source rather than a actual publication. Whereas at the bottom of the page, I found this really great Psychology Today article with a named author. Another option for finding information is Wikipedia. Now, I do not recommend ever directly citing a Wikipedia page. Teachers hate it. It makes you look lazy and like you wrote your essay the night before, which should never be the message you want to send. So you always want to use Wikipedia as a place to find articles, but not as a source itself. To give you an example, this is the Wikipedia page for the college admissions scandal that's going on, which I'm sure you've all heard of. So what I did is I went to where it was talking about how students cheated, because this could definitely be a topic for a paper. And all I did is I went and I clicked on the different sources that they have here, as you see. And then if I find a source I like, I can click on it. So yeah, that's a trick for how to use Wikipedia to find sources, and it is really helpful. Wikipedia does a really good job of finding credible sources, so most sources that they do cite are ones that are super credible and that you can trust. So those are the options that I recommend for doing research. Now for some general research advice, and this is just from years and years of trial and error and spending hundreds of hours researching. There are some things that I have learned along the way that has definitely saved me time and effort, which I know you can all appreciate. So my first piece of advice is to create your works cited page early on in the writing process. So like many of you, I used to always write my works cited page as a last step in my writing process, and I hated it. It took me forever. And at some point I realized that if I did all my research first and created my works cited page before I started writing my essay, then I could cite my quotes as I wrote, and then when I finished my essay, I was actually done and didn't have another 4 hours of work ahead of me. My second piece of advice is to not avoid longer articles. So I used to only use short articles in my research because I thought it would save me time, but that's not actually the case. What saves you time is having really good, juicy quotes, the type of quotes that make it easy to discuss and relate to your topic, and longer articles give you more options for good quotes and will save you time writing. My third piece of advice is don't feel pressured to use the library databases unless you want to. So library databases are great, don't get me wrong, but they're also really dense and packed with complex ideas that may only be understandable to experts on the topic. And you need to understand the sources that you use. So if the database isn't working for your topic, just use Google. There's no shame in it. My next piece of advice is to choose quotes that say something meaningful rather than something obvious. As I stated before, having good juicy quotes is the key to a quick and easy writing process. By juicy, I mean quotes that say something meaningful, not just the obvious information we all kinda know already. There is so much interesting research out there, find it and tell me about it. My fifth piece of advice is to choose quotes that you actually understand. Avoid quotes with big words or confusing language. Never choose quotes that make you sound smart. You are smart. You don't need to convince me of that. I would rather you choose an interesting quote that you actually understand and can explain, rather than an overly complex quote that you can't talk about because you're worried about saying the wrong thing. Choose quotes that you understand and can discuss. And then on a related note, always explain your quotes and how they relate to your essay or paragraph topic. For every sentence of quotes, there should be at least 2 sentences where you explain and discuss why the quote is important. This is why a juicy quote that you actually understand is so important and will make the writing process so much easier and quicker. Okay, so that's all I got. Now it's time to do your own research. Good luck.